We got a bombshell here with this Bryan Harsin Auburn news. I mean, we've been waiting for this guy to get fired for 2 or 3 days now. Could be coming at any moment here. I got the computer up just in case it happens live during the show. I mean, it's that bad. So we got to start with that. We're going to get into a little bit of a rundown of National Signing Day. It was kind of a ho-hum day for most of the schools in the SEC, but Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, Jimbo Fisher going back and forth. We're going to feature that as well. And here's what we're going to do, because I don't want this to be a 2-hour recap of the last week. We're just going to be going around the league all the rest of the week. I'm going to try to get some great guests lined up because we had a number of press conferences. So basically a treasure trove of content here this week for the pod. So we can be breaking that down all week. But again, like I said, we got to start on the Plains where, man, it's hard to believe this is where we're at. One season, I know it was a poor season, 6-7, started out strong. We're going into November, and Auburn's controlling its own destiny in the SEC West. But since that time, I mean, it has just been just a horror show there. And this is a program that, highs and lows, they have experienced some drama. I cannot recall a time more drama than what they got right now on the Plains. Bryan Harsin essentially dangling in here in the wind day after day after day. And my man's in Mexico on vacation. I don't even know where to start with this thing, but I'm going to go to offensive coordinator Austin Davis, the guy they hired from the Seattle Seahawks just a few weeks after being on the job. Remember, he didn't come till the Seahawks season ended in early January. January 9th, to be specific, was the last Seattle game of the season. He's out already. Of course, everyone knows that by now, but a couple weeks on the job, one major recruiting weekend before National Signing Day, and Auburn's offensive coordinator is out the door. That would leave Bryan Harsin with 5 coordinators, if he's able to make a coordinator hire to replace his offensive coordinator, Austin Davis. 5 coordinators in 14 months on the job. Don't think I've ever seen that at any juncture in an SEC coach's career, but his first 14 months on the job, just incredible. Of course, Derek Mason left for Oklahoma State. Mike Bobo got fired, and they promoted from within to replace Mason. They're likely going to have to promote from within. Like I said, even if he gets the opportunity to hire an offensive coordinator. But the way things are looking, it looks like Bryan Harsin is going to be out the door. So he's probably not going to be making that 5th coordinator hire by all indication. But, I'm sure Auburn fans, the inner workings of your program. But, for the rest of the audience around the SEC wondering, how in the hell did this happen so quickly? How is Bryan Harsin? And if you're going to fire the guy, why didn't you fire him right at the end of the season? Why? I mean, it has been a string of embarrassment. There's the number 25 players in the transfer portal has been cited time and time again. I believe the real number is 19. Not that that's much better, but they've got 5 additions via the transfer portal, 19 defections. Javarius Johnson, one of the top receivers, I think he was 3rd or 4th on the team. They have lost 3 of the 5. Johnson to the transfer portal. Kobe Hudson, of course, to the transfer portal, got booted from the team. Demarius Robinson off to the NFL. So that's those players, those 3 combined for 100 catches, 1,343 yards, 10 touchdowns. I mean, your receiving corps is totally reworked. We know Bo Nix off to Oregon. I mean, it is just a mess down there. But like I said, so let's take this thing back to the beginning. So maybe the fans don't understand why there's so much drama involved here with Coach Harsin. And it all goes back to his hiring. And, there was so much speculation when Gus was shown the door. Hell, they were trying to get rid of Gus for 3 or 4 years there. And when I say they, I'm talking about the boosters. And their plan was to promote defensive coordinator Kevin Steele to become the head coach. Obviously, that didn't happen. And, this is just such a tricky situation here at Auburn. It's very unique where we got an AD in Alan Green, and we've got a president, Jay Googe, on his way out. Just this week, they've already announced the replacement for the Auburn president, and that's going to be So Googe is in there till May. But so we got an outgoing president. The AD's got one foot out the door. He's not very popular. He's doing not what the boosters want. Had he done what the boosters wanted, Kevin Steele would be your head coach right now. He did the opposite. He hired a guy from out west, Boise bred, Boise coach, played at Boise, Bryan Harsin. I mean, the fit from day one was terrible, but I feel like you got to give this guy a chance. And man, there's a lot more to say about this, but it's clear as day. The people behind the scenes did not want Bryan Harsin, are now trying to push him out the door. And this has just turned into such an ugly, ugly feud. And, before we even get to that, let's get to this because I don't think we addressed this when it happened. But Brent Venables, the Oklahoma coach, who longtime Clemson defensive coordinator before Bryan Harsin got the job, Venables was offered the position. That's what he claims here. This is a quick clip from Oklahoma introductory press conference of Brent Venables, kind of give you a little window into what I'm talking about here.
Daughter and I, about a month ago, were laying up in her bed and we're saying prayers, and I'm always telling you to dream big, right? Don't put limitations on yourself. Don't let somebody tell you that you can't accomplish something. So she says, well, Dad, why didn't you take the Auburn job last year? I had made reference that I was a little bit nervous. I really didn't think we had the alignment there that we have here.
So why isn't Venables, who was a coveted coordinator, many head coaching opportunities during his time at Clemson, given the multiple national titles, multiple ACC titles under the Tigers, under the Dabo Swinney and Brent Venables era, he's not at Auburn because the alignment's not there. Same thing had been said by Billy Napier. Allegedly said, I offered the job same time before Bryan Harsin. He said, I don't know who in the hell my boss is going to be there. And this is what he's talking about. Is it Alan Green? Is it the AD? Is it the president, Jay Googe? Is it these boosters that are writing all the checks and making decisions down there? It certainly seems like at this point in time, it is the boosters that are running the show down there. And, they're letting it be known that if Bryan Harsin's fired after 1 year, it's because these boosters got more control than they really should have. And because at the end of the day, while there's boosters all across the SEC, you think the boosters are telling Nick Saban what to do? You think they're telling Kirby Smart what to do? I would even go so far as to say, guys like Brian Kelly, who just got there, Billy Napier of Florida, go on and on and on. I mean, you've got to be behind your head coach, and that is something that Bryan Harsin, indicated. He spoke with ESPN, and I think the most damning quote: "Let the head coach be the head coach and support him. That's what it takes to be a championship program." And he is specifically referencing these power brokers behind the scenes that he has allegedly turned his back on. He's not letting them make decisions, not letting them near the program, which, you can argue what is their place after giving all this money. But, that's basically boils down to what is happening here. And now after, all these coordinators changing, all these players hitting the transfer portal this week, the tail end of last week, heading into the weekend, we've got all these allegations, rumors of an affair with, a member of the program that Bryan Harsin runs. And I'll just go out and say, I think it's terrible that people put that shit out there. And then, first of all, that they find this girl. I'm not going to say her name or anything because I think it's incredibly wrong. And they're just tweeting it out. Here's pictures of her. He followed Bryan Harsin from Boise. There's your evidence. That's all we need. All across the SEC, coaches hire people that from their previous institution. Josh Heupel hired several people from Central Florida's staff. Clark Lee at Vanderbilt brought several people from Notre Dame. And I'm talking men and women here from both of these sides. Brian Kelly's bringing people from Notre Dame. Shane Beamer has brought people together from his stops. I mean, just because you're bringing someone from a previous institution, you're going from Boise to Auburn. I don't care if you're the head coach or you're the lowest, a secretary or a football administration or football recruiting department, whatever department you're in, you are getting an automatic promotion going from Boise, who, all due respect, I know they're a good G5 program, but you get to go to the SEC, come to the SEC West, one of the best programs in the country. That is a major pay bump. It's better on your resume. That gets your foot in the door with a lot more windows. So, I mean, it's just incredible that the shit that people run with no evidence. And I'll tell you right now, because this leaked, I don't know, Thursday, Friday, whatever it was. Here I am recording on Sunday evening. If this was true, Bryan Harsin's ass would be gone immediately, because you can't be having affairs with people that you employ. We all know that with old Bobby Petrino. And I mean, I don't know. It just pisses me off that shit like that gets out. And more importantly, that it spreads like wildfire without any shred of evidence. So that pissed me off. But then after that, then there's allegations that he's abusive towards the player. And then after that, there was another outlet that basically said he's a racist and he prefers to play the white players. And this was all in the same day that all this came out. And to me, I mean, it kind of screams of a hit job. And I'm not saying, I'm not sitting here saying that Bryan Harsin is the best guy. Certainly seems like he's got real issues with coaches, but, he seems like a very difficult guy to work with. Here, again, I'm saying it, 5 coordinators here in 14 months. That tells me he's incredibly difficult to work with. 19 players in the portal. It's a culture change, and some players don't like him. And it really got started with Lee Hunter, defensive lineman, one of the top prospects, signed in Bryan Harsin's first class, left the program, transferred to UCF to, of course, reunite with Gus Malzahn. Says, I love Auburn. I always wanted to play for Auburn, but I chose to leave Auburn because we got treated like we wasn't good enough and like dogs. I mean, that's a direct quote from Lee Hunter. So obviously that's terrible. Defensive back Smoke Monday, arguably your best player on the team last year, says, love Auburn to death, but this is real and true. And I was at Auburn for 4 years and I never felt like how I felt this past season. Harsin truly don't understand kids that come from nothing. And that was, just some of them. They had a Twitter Spaces where they were kind of calling the guy out. But at the same time, they both turned around and said, he's a very good coach. His people skills is horrible. And that's what he needs to work on. And it's not just players calling Bryan Harsin out, because we got players like Chandler Wooten who came out in Bryan Harsin's defense. So we don't need a best friend. We need a coach. And that's what we had in Bryan Harsin. Derek Hall, one of the best defensive linemen on Auburn last year. Don't believe the things you see. Coach Harsin works harder than no other man to put this program in the best position to be successful, point blank, period. We are behind him 100%, no matter what's being said. Great man of character who loves this team. Stop the BS. Tight end John Samuel Shanker. Listen and listen carefully. Coach Harsin is my football coach. He is the leader I want to have in my corner. If you have a problem with his discipline, toughness, and conviction that he instills in his players, then you get your entitled, selfish, and soft tail out of this program. And then how about this? Offensive lineman Nick Brahms, a super senior, decided to come back to play for Bryan Harsin next season. He's calling out the Board of Trustees. I've never seen anything like this. Auburn Board of Trustees and President Gouge, I'm inviting you to speak with the player leaders on this team. Your decision will impact us and this program for years to come. We have valuable insight as we spend every day with Coach Harsin and his staff. We love Auburn just like all of you. So, I mean, you're getting two sides of the story here. What's right? What's wrong? Everyone has their own opinions and their own experiences. So, again, I'm not saying that Bryan Harsin's any kind of saint here, but clearly, I mean, these are not just white players defending him either. So, I mean, to me, that says the racism thing's out the door. Verbally abusive. I mean, what does that really even mean when you're installing a culture change? He's going to run guys off. Players that don't buy in. That happens across college football. There's players. Hell, we've seen players at Georgia. I'm not trying to throw Kirby into this, but hell, they just won the national championship. They've had 8 or 9 guys leave the team. I mean, this happens everywhere. So I don't know if I'm buying, that he's abusive towards the players. And again, the affair thing I think is a damn joke, because his ass would be gone immediately if there was any truth to that. And hell, maybe there is, and maybe I'll look like a fool, but they're not keeping this guy on for days on end if any of these allegations of an affair with an employee are valid and there's any proof. He would be gone immediately, because what they're trying to do is fire him for cause, because they owe him, if they don't have cause, $18.3 million. And they just paid Gus and his staff some absurd, like 50-something million, to get them out and to hire Bryan Harsin and his staff. So, man, just a tangled web down here at Auburn. And all indications are that Bryan Harsin is not going to be returning. I mean, I don't know how you could come back from something like this. Now, there's other allegations that he's blowing off, charity golf events with Bo Jackson, of course, a legend down there. He's blowing off recruiting events, which is in the state of Georgia, which is going to be Auburn's bread and butter the entire time that, for any coach down there at Auburn. They've got to recruit the state of Georgia as hard as they recruit Alabama, if not harder. And, I guess the same could be said for Florida. Those are the three core states there for a coach. So it is kind of baffling to see Bryan Harsin not kind of go all in on recruiting. But is that more because, hell, Auburn just got the number 18 class. That's decent. That's not decent for SEC, but for a lot of teams in the country, they'd take 18 in a heartbeat. But the problem is your two arch rivals here, Alabama and Georgia, are led by two coaches that live and breathe recruiting, and it consumes their life. And if you're not in that level, you're going to look like a poor recruiter. And, I think recruiting certainly is an issue. That's got to get better, along with the people skills, along with having coaches. There's allegations that, apparently if he's got an issue with the player, he just sends an assistant to maybe cut him or release him. And you can't have it that way either, because if you're the leader of the Auburn football program, you have to be the one. You're making these tough calls. You got to be man enough to face these players and say, hey, you need to go because this ain't working out. There was another allegation that Tyrone Truesdale, I believe is his name, a senior defensive lineman, went to Bryan Harsin and asked for a break. I think it was during fall camp. And he said, sure, I'll give you the longest break you ever had. You're gone. You cut from the team. So, again, it's a mixed messages we're getting. Who knows if that's really true? I think that came out of the Twitter spaces with the players. So they would have a very good indication of what happened as long as, they're speaking the truth there. But it's just wild. It's wild to see. And this story is not going anywhere anytime soon. You got the president of the school came out here on, I believe this was on Friday. He said an appropriate decision will be made at the right time. And here we are days later. No decision has been made. And we got spring practice here starting up in a couple weeks. So, and apparently to turn that around, so they've got an opening at offensive coordinator. I don't believe Harsin's got the green light to hire anybody. And I don't know if he knew the salary or anything he could give his previous coordinator hire. So that's maybe why we're seeing promotions from within, which we may have to see here at offensive coordinator as well. So just a wild situation on the plains. And as we sit here Sunday evening, I'm recording this 9:00 at night. I do not think that Bryan Harsin is going to be brought back, but it doesn't sound like he's willing to quit. It sounds like they're trying to make him quit. And I don't think he's going to do that either. So I think that's why we're at this standstill with days and days and days of speculation that he's gone, he's not coming back. But again, how do you come back from something like this when the powers that be, whether they should be the powers or be or not, the guy that hired you is not the powers that be. The president, President Googe is the one that ultimately will decide if Bryan Harsin stays or goes. He is one foot out the door as well. His final day is going to be here in May. So, I mean, that adds more intrigue. Does he want a coaching decision before he leaves? I mean, so much going on here. But hey, we'll keep you posted. And hell, if Bryan Harsin gets fired during this show, I'll definitely let the audience know. But so that's just a recap of just the messy situation Auburn finds itself in, and it doesn't look good for Bryan Harsin at this point. And hey, maybe more revelations will come out, and maybe that's what they're trying to dig into at this point in time. But I don't know. It's Auburn being Auburn. It's too many cooks in the kitchen, and I don't think at the end of the day, I think this is a bad look for everybody involved. And I certainly, I've heard the names being thrown out there for who will come to Auburn next, but I don't even know if they will want to come, given everything we've seen, unless we get some alignment here, which going back to Brent Venables, Billy Napier, that was lacking down here, and maybe that's why they had to hire a guy like Bryan Harsin, who did a good job at Boise, but when this hire was made, didn't necessarily rally the fans behind this, and I think we're seeing this just a year later. Many fans still not sold on their head coach.